Hello and welcome to another episode of the Super League Pom-Cast. I'm your host, Johnny. You can find me on Twitter, JohnLuke13. Find us on all social media, the Rugby League Pom-Cast. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And joining me today is, of course, from sunny Blackpool, it is Andy from Only in Rugby League. How are we doing, Andy? You've not
Hi,
quite been
mate.
cancelled off this podcast yet.
Nearly got cancelled off my own podcast of the other one. I
It's
say me own. This is like mine as well with you in it, but the other podcast of the
yeah.
Only Rugby League, yeah. I,
I'll just give you
as
free reign.
usual, I made some sort of faux pas with the pronunciation and stuff by mistake.
Yeah.
I couldn't read my own writing, but
If you don't know the reference, go check them out. Only in
yeah,
Rugby League Pods. They are incredible, the lads over there. But starting off on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the new PNG franchise and how that could potentially affect the Super League with certain players, maybe. We're also going to talk about, I've got a Talk to Me about, which is a feature you guys do on your podcast, but
yeah.
it's something I think that is a good point that I've just read up on this morning. Thirdly, we're going to talk about Big Al's contract and how he's still going at the ripe old age of 482. He's got the elixir of life. But yeah, starting off the podcast, just want to say a little tribute to a little best wishes to Craig Bellamy from the Melbourne Storm. Last night the news came out that he had been diagnosed with a neurodegenerative disease. So it's kind of like an umbrella statement for your conditions like motor neuron disease and things like that. Obviously, nothing's been mentioned about what else the condition is, and his privacy is everything. But just want to send out the best wishes to Craig and the Melbourne Storm and everyone there. He's a figure of the sport that he's one of the characters that you think of whenever you think of rugby league, isn't he?
I totally agree, and I think as well, the Storm are having a tough time this season.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of unbelievable comments that I've seen about Bellamy needs to retire, Bellamy needs to go. And I'm like, look what the guy's done.
Yeah.
Look what
Over
the
20
guy's
odd
done.
years.
It's I don't see the same people saying that Wayne Bennett has to retire. It's
No.
very odd, but I mean, let's be honest. If your club was there and the coach had got sacked and you said, well, Craig Bellamy is interested in coming to our club, you'd snap their hands off, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And
Along with Wayne Bennett, the
yeah.
greatest coach this game's seen.
Oh, the top three easily.
Yeah.
Easily, if not top two.
Yeah.
And the things we're gonna miss, like is blow ups in the boxes and things like that. Like when he does eventually retire, or the condition becomes the worst of him. Like he's one of the characters the sport
No.
loves, and the stories that players say about whenever they've won a grand final or whenever they've gone and done stuff, it's always him that's like usually the staunch serious one that always takes a good joke as well. So best wishes to Craig and the Melbourne Storm. But obviously the big story this week is the Papua New Guinea Chiefs have made the first official signing in Jerome Luai, which means that Jerome is cutting his 5-year initial deal short with the West Tigers and moving over at the end of 2027 after 3 years there. Now, the reason I want to speak about this on the Super League podcast is because this is a player that is really was the staple of this new West Tigers project that is now going over to a new franchise for effectively double his salary because of a tax-free initiative by the Papua New Guinea government. And on top of that, third-party agreements, which could be anywhere up to $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to be the face of the franchise that is all tax-free. Now, this we've seen it with Perth Bears, the new franchise coming in, signing, I think, 4 or 5 English talents this year. This could have a serious knock-on effect and implications for Super League and the talent pool, especially with Willie Peters being the head coach. We talk about Jez Litton, you know, you them sorts of players, your Mickey Lewis's, your
Yeah.
Jack Wellesby's, who I know Mickey Lewis isn't off contract, but there's always a fee involved in there that
Yeah.
can always break that. Jack Wellesby is off contract at the end of 2027. We could see this exodus of players leaving both the NRL deals early to go join Papua New Guinea or our men themselves. This is quite scary, isn't it? This initiative, this incentive.
Well, the first thing to say is that everybody has a price.
Mm-hmm.
So
Everyone.
whether players are off contract or on contract, sometimes the allure of the NRL can prove too much, and we've seen it in on the flip side of it as well, where we've seen it with overseas players in Super League that have been released from their contract on compassionate grounds, or
Yeah.
they're homesick or whatever, or they just haven't fit in to the English game or whatever. So contracts are breakable. I suppose that's the thing, and I think everybody has a price. So I think the most pertinent thing that you've said there is that the coach in Willie Peters, he's had now a couple of years' experience in the English game
In
and as a
Super League.
player as well. So he's connected more than Mal Meninga, for example, at the Perth
Mm-hmm.
Bears, more connected with the English game. It hasn't stopped Meninga raiding the Super League coffers. But you would imagine that, and again, we're second guessing this, aren't we? But you imagine that people like Mikey Lewis, Jez Litton, who you've mentioned, might jump at the chance, not just to play in the NRL, but to link up with their coach again.
Yeah. And also they're living in a 5-star hotel
Yeah.
compound that
Yeah.
is gonna be heavily guarded by I think every military man
Well,
in,
I was,
in
I
the
was going to,
world.
well, I was going to ask you about this, about the PNG setup. How attractive is it to players? You're on the ground there. You know more than me about that. So, how attractive is that going to that club compared compared to a Sydney club, for example?
Well, I think there's a lot of different factors involved because obviously there'll be for every pro, I think there's a con to that pro. So, for example, it is the number one sport in Papua New Guinea. You see them playing on the
Yeah.
streets with
Oh,
water bottles, playing like
it's
the rugby league mental over there.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
But on the flip side of that, because the rugby league mental, you'll have a lot of the players' families going over, going, we need absolute assurances that we're going to be 100% safe living in Papua New Guinea for, the 4 months of the year that they will be there.
Do you
So
think?
it's huge.
Do you think there's an argument to say that going to PNG to play in that is even more of a goldfish bowl than playing for in Sydney?
Oh, massively. You wouldn't be able to step out of the compound.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to go nip to the shops. Like in Sydney, you go nip to the shops
Yeah.
and someone might spot you and go, oh, can we have a selfie or nip to the local coffee shop? Whereas in Papua New Guinea, you won't be able to do that without an armed guard.
So does the
Surely,
the monetary benefits outweigh that to go to PNG?
well, you're
That
basically
makes sense.
doubling your salary
Is that worth it when you can't step out of the compound?
for 4.5, 5 months of the year.
It's a long
I
time.
think yeah, but I also think that's a huge incentive. Don't forget, we're not talking about, a council estate in Runcorn that you can't go out of. We're talking about like a gaff with like 3 swimming pools. You know, they're going to put in schools themselves, like, and have an inbound teaching for the kids and the
Yeah,
families of the players. This is what's
yeah,
been reported in the media anyway. You know, they're going to have the best security going on the outside of it. Nothing much has been said about the compound and the hotel that they're going to. I know there was a short list of 2 or 3. I believe that's now sorted that they've gone with one of them. Like it's one of them. Like, you know, it's like being in one of them places in, you know, Tenerife that's got a nightclub, couple of bars inside the actual all-inclusive resort. So, and they won't have to pay for any meals. They won't have to pay for any of that. That salary will just be outright.
yeah. It's
It's a huge
disposable
deal.
income. Yeah, disposable income. I mean,
You've just got
like you said,
1.5. If someone said,
there's
I'm going to give you 1.5 million, you don't have to cook whenever you're here.
no living expenses, no travel expenses, no. Yeah,
None of that. Would you
it's a
say,
little
oh,
bit like it's
actually,
a little bit like footballers that play in Saudi, isn't it?
and at the end of the day, over 3 years, you're there for 15 months, just over a year, in that sort of luxury? Like, is it really that
How
bad?
how good a team can they build?
I think that the fact that they've got Jerome Luai now, I don't think anyone thought they'd get someone of that standard. I don't think anyone thought a player with young kids like him would have gone.
Yeah.
I believe now anything is possible. I
Okay.
really do.
I mean,
They've got a good board. Michael Chamas is, you know, former journalist over here. He's you know, heavily selling the franchise over to these players.
well, I don't know about you, but I've been underwhelmed by Perth signings so far.
Hugely,
You know, massively
hugely.
underwhelmed. And you know, I'm looking at, yeah, there's a long way to go. Don't get me wrong, but I'm looking at the quality of signings that they've made so far, and I'm thinking, well, I don't even think the Titans and the Dragons are going to be wooden spoons under that. So, you know, I think they're going to be, you know, I think they I can't see them. I can't see them finishing anything but bottom
Yeah.
with the
Well,
quality of signings. But
yeah.
what I'm saying with PNG, and it will take them a couple of years. There's no question. I mean, and they're not going to come in the first season and finish first or second. But what I'm saying is that how far can they go?
It depends. We're only judging off 2 signings, really, because Alex Johnson announced that he's going over. You'll probably get the likes of other Papua New Guinea internationals. I know, what's his name? Jack DeBellin said that he's interested in going over, and there's a couple of others that are in the tail ends of the career that want to go over. But
Mm.
what's stopping like them offering Nathan Cleary a stupid
Yeah,
contract,
with
for
this
example?
freedom, yeah, with this freedom of finance, so to speak. Yeah,
They've got the same salary cap, but it's effectively 60% more.
it reminds me of in Super League. It reminds me of years ago when Catalan's Dragons didn't
Had
have
the
a
extra.
didn't have an overseas quota, if you like. They didn't have to follow the 4 or 5 overseas signings. They could sign as many as they
But
wanted. It was just difference.
do you remember when, because they had an agreement when they joined Super League that it would be so many euros
Yeah,
to the pound,
yeah,
and that
that's
never
right.
got updated. And I think the
No,
euro went from
yeah,
like 1.28 at the time to like 1.08, and they were able to spend like something like 500,000 more than what the rest
yeah.
of Super League could. It's
Yeah.
effectively what it is there. But
It reminds me
with
a little bit of that. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And with Perth, you mentioned their signings. Me and Sam mentioned it on our podcast um, last year that basically earlier this year that Perth have got a real uphill battle because for them to sign players from Sydney or Brisbane, they're going to have to pay overs to get them over to Perth, which is 5.5, 6, 7 hours flight away from there. Like it's a far way away. They've got no dispensation, so they've got the same salary cap as everyone else. So if they want a Nathan Cleary, they'd have to pay him 2, 3 million, which is, you know, a quarter of the cap. and
Yeah,
then they're
and I think
struggling to get everyone else. Whereas the players they can entice are
uh,
English talent, where they're
yeah.
like, look, it's one flight from London,
I think if
19
you're
hours.
well, I
That's
think
why they've
you're
signed a lot
right.
of English.
Well, I think there's two things there. I think number one, for people in England, I don't think most people realise the difference in how far that distance is. It's not like moving from Leeds Rhinos um, to Warrington,
It's the Toronto situation.
and and that's and that's
It's
and
moving
that's
to
as bad.
Toronto.
That's as bad because you as well as I do. The West Yorkshire players, West Yorkshire people, they rarely venture out of West
They
Yorkshire.
they don't want to
They
go
all
to.
they all
They don't want to
play
go
for
over the
Leeds,
Pennines.
Huddersfield, Castleford. They all play for that, and they stick to. I'll give you a good example of that. Danny Brough.
Yeah,
Danny Brough played for everybody in West Yorkshire,
yeah.
Wakefield, everybody.
Bradford,
Yeah, but so I don't think people realise
Huddersfield.
exactly.
Only
Don't
one he missed out was Leeds, wasn't it?
yeah. I don't think that people realise how big that distance is, if you like. And when you're playing away then every other week, and you're playing a 7-hour flight every other week, I don't think
And a
people
different
understand.
time zone.
Yeah, exactly.
3 hours behind.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's the first that's the first thing on that.
So
And then
it is a danger for Super League.
yeah, and then I think what I also don't think is that for English players, so you're talking about like people like Nathan Cleary, people like going to Perth, which is pretty much out in the sticks, isn't it, as far as
Yeah.
the Australian rugby league community is concerned.
It's kind of, but
Bring
it's got the perks of like Melbourne, where you can go down the street, no one will know who you are.
yeah, and for the English players, well, they don't care, do they? The English players, if they get an opportunity in NRL, let's be honest. If I'm an England international and I'm playing in Super League and I get the chance to go into the NRL, it doesn't really matter to me whether I'm going for the Canterbury Bulldogs or for the Perth Bears because
There's
I
no
am not
allegiance really.
no, and I am not used to that lifestyle. So for
Hmm.
me as an English
Yeah.
person, it wouldn't make much difference to me whether I'm going living in Sydney or
Or
going living in
Perth.
Perth because
Be- yeah.
I would probably not notice much of a difference.
To be honest, for the English lifestyle that you want, if you want the full Australian experience, you're actually probably best living in Perth
Mm,
because you've got a beach. Because the way Perth's built, it's built along the coast, so it's built
okay.
upwards, whereas
Yeah.
Sydney is built outwards. So you've got the coast 15 minutes from your house, no matter where you live in Perth. And if you want to go to training, it's a 25, 30-minute drive a lot of the time, as long as you live within the suburbs of the city that are near the coast. So if you're an English player, Perth is a better option for you. Closer to home, you've got the beach on your doorstep, and that's sorted. That's why they can entice it. The Papua New Guinea one, if they wanted the top English talent, they can go, look, you can earn tax-free money over here,
Yeah.
and it'll entice the more younger player, I reckon. Your
Yeah.
likes of your Jack Wellesbys, because who don't have kids, for example, who've just got a missus, and they can go, do you want to just sit out in the sun by a pool for
Yeah.
5 months of the year,
And
for his missus or whatever,
yeah.
or like that,
Yeah.
and
And
earn
on
$900,000, £450,000 a year,
yeah. And on the
and
flip
not get
side of
taxed on it.
that, you'll get the experienced kangaroo, the experienced state of origin player that will be looking for a big last contract payday.
Exactly, exactly. So you'll have a good mix of.
Like Jerome Luai. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird that you say he's like old and experienced. I think he's like 27.
Yeah.
he's,
But
he's,
but
he's,
but by the time he finishes this
yeah,
contract,
he's 29. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, you banged on there, and it actually leads us really well into our talk to me about, because um, there's a big thing over here and over in England, the NRL takeover that we've talked about numerous times. They're having another meeting apparently at Magic Round, so hopefully
Okay.
I bump into Nigel Wood. That'll be fun in the Caxton. Yeah, like Nigel, have you got your Bradford pint glass? Did I tell you about that?
No.
He was at a motor neurone disease function at Haydock Racecourse because his missus was singing, and my sister and my mum and dad were there because both my sisters and that, and Nigel Wood was there, and he had a pint, a pint of beer as you do, but he brought his own pint glass.
Really? Well,
Can you guess what was on the pint glass?
oh, it wasn't a Bradford Bulls bag,
It was
it?
Bradford Bulls logo.
Well, I was going to get one of them
While he's RFL CEO.
Well, I was going to get one of them from the shop at the match tomorrow. I was going to get one of them to take to work and have my own glass at work. A little bit like Peter Kay in Phoenix Nights, where he's got his own vase. I was going to have my own. I'm going to have my own pint tankard at work like that in the bar, definitely.
Anyway, back to topic.
Yeah, go on.
Hopefully, I do bump into Nige, but basically, you said on your podcast a couple of weeks ago when you did this section of Talk to Me About, and that you were talking about the NRL deal, potential takeover, and you've expressed it on here as well, and you and Callum, your workmate, that you both said that you fear that Super League is going to become some sort of feeder comp. My question to you is, has it not been already for the last 3 or 4 years at least? Has this year itself not proven that we are currently a feeder club without this investment?
That's a good point. It's a good point.
At the end of the year, we're losing 6 or 7 Super League players that are just English players
that are going to new franchises in themselves.
New franchises. So are we not currently a feeder club, feeder league anyway?
Yeah, it's a good argument. It's a good argument. My thoughts, and I've said it on here, and I've said it on our other podcast. I've said, to me, and I've always said this, and I'll die on this hill, the whole English game should be built around the fact about beating Australia. That's what I believe, and I've always believed that, because we haven't won a World Cup since 1972.
That's great, Britain.
Yeah, we haven't beat Australia in a meaningful test series, I think, since 1978, okay? That's 50 years nearly, right?
Do you even remember that?
No.
You'd have been a toddler.
Yeah, I was. So there was like, no. So I think, right? But everything that we do should be built around that. Now, I think the English game and the England team and the Great Britain team, whatever, we're at a stage in life now, we're at a stage in the game where England take those games and those situations far more seriously than Australians do. Because in the Australian game, in the Australian public, not been a competition, has it?
No, it hasn't. And they laugh at us. So,
exactly.
So how do we stop them laughing at us without investment?
So what I'm trying to say here is that this whole game situation, if we've got the investment and a feeder league, number one, our game needs to be able to compete in competitiveness. Every week where you're not quite sure who's going to win. So in the NRL, you could say certainly 14, 15 teams. Yeah, all right, there's always a couple of like fodder teams, isn't there, really, that if they win a game here and there, they're still capable of doing it, but not on a weekly basis. But you've probably got 12, 13 teams pushing to get in the top 8, haven't you, in the NRL?
Oh, easily. If not 14, 15.
Yeah. Well, you look at Super League, you've got 6 teams, and you could name 4 every year that get in. Then there's 2 others that are pretty much clamouring for, until Hull KR came on the scene, are pretty much clamouring for those 5th and 6th spots, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Plus the fact in Super League, Hull KR since 1996 are the first team outside Saints, Wigan, Bradford, and Leeds
Leeds.
to win Super League. Now you can compare that to the NRL and say, well, there's pretty much a different winner every year. All right, you've got dominant teams that have gone past. The Panthers have been dominant over the last few years. The
Storm.
Storm have been dominant, but they've been run close, or there's been other teams that have been in the
Yeah.
and that's sport. You look at football. Up to the last 10 years, United were always dominant. Liverpool were dominant. There's always going to be dominant teams in an era of sport, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what the sport is. But my point is that if the whole game is based on beating Australia, that means that the league has to be more competitive. If the league is more competitive, that means we are producing better clubs, better
Yeah.
teams, and therefore better players and better English players to be able to take on the Kangaroos over a period of time, not in one test series or one World Cup,
Yeah.
over a period of time.
So, right, if so, I'm trying to phrase this right. So, with the sort of investment side of it and getting the league big, it needs money to get it better, to get it more competitive, to stop the losses of income that owners are
Yeah,
putting in.
yeah,
Like, if the NRL go right, we're gonna wipe out your debts, but you've got to invest the same amount of money. So you're not losing money as a club, but you need to invest as much into the development, so on and so forth. That creates a better league, doesn't it? Over a long term period. When you're
yes.
talking about beating Australia, do we, as an English game, say, right, in order to keep the talent in Super League, if you want to represent England, you've got to stay in Super League and ban all NRL players?
I think we've gone too far to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest.
You'd have
Last
had
year,
to have done that 15 years ago, wouldn't you?
yeah. What I don't agree with is the rule like last year where you're saying, "Oh, you can bring in 10 now."
Yeah,
Just
it should
that's
never have
just
been.
to me that's to the detriment of our own game. So you're always going to get the NRL. I think will always be seen as the bigger fish, the bigger league, the more
Hmm.
competitive league, and that's not just on a standard level. I'm talking about like us having to get to that level where players don't have to leave Super League because it's just as good. But when you look at it at the minute and you look at profiling the country, TV deals, the NRL doesn't often play second fiddle to other sports like the Premier League and things like that in its own country.
Plus with AFL and
Yeah,
cricket,
in certain
there it's
areas.
two
Yeah,
competitors.
yeah. So you think, okay, but there has to be a way of getting the league more competitive where players have a choice not to leave the country. And if they do, well, that's fine. I haven't got a problem with that. That's no different to me than let's say Harry Kane leaving for Bayern Munich. That's no different to me.
Yeah.
People there. What I'd like to see and what isn't really going to happen with salary caps and things like that is that unfortunately we're in a position over here where we're not getting the Jamie Lyons
Yeah.
coming over anymore.
No.
Ben Barber's a different matter. We're not getting the Trent Barretts. We're not getting. Do you know what I mean? Because there's
Yeah,
different
yeah.
reasons for that. So we're getting a lot of players that
Softs all
yeah.
can't
Now
make it.
now I've always said this that I think we should introduce
So,
rules on the quotas.
so would,
So
yeah, go on.
no, I think so. For example, take Saints. Yeah,
Hmm.
I don't think Saints should be allowed, right, by Super League, by the league, to sign Kyle Felt.
Mm.
I think that there should be something in place from Super League to say, no, actually, you can't sign anybody over the age of X unless they've got so many caps or, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
There should be something in there to say, because I think that then you look at someone like Kyle Felt, how is he stifling? So,
When Dagnall.
yes, now if Lewis
Or
Murphy had,
Sambu, for example, that we lost to
right,
Wigan.
there you
So,
go.
So
So,
if we
so
didn't
I
sign
would,
him, it would
so I
develop a
would,
younger player.
yeah. So I would prefer to see Owen Dagnall in the team than Kyle Felt. Your other argument about is that they can learn off these players, and I get all that, but I'm thinking for the game itself, for Super League as a whole,
Hmm.
the NRL aren't signing Tommy Makinson
No, they
at
tried to
30,
though,
at
but they're
32.
not doing it. But they're not doing it now. Yeah, they're
No,
doing it when
but
he was 26.
right. So they're doing 32 and saying, "Well, no, your time's gone." Well, to me, Kyle Felt's time's gone to sign for a top Super League team.
Yeah, the only
That's just
players
my
like that were probably Martin O'Fire or like them players
yeah.
from the past, or Ellery
So,
Hanley that
so
were
you're right. So
still
in
doing it.
going full circle to what you said, yes, we are a feeder team, but I think the problem is the other way round. I think we're bringing too many NRL players in that are past their best that we shouldn't be signing,
Yeah,
and therefore are stifling some of the younger players, which would
yeah,
make the league more competitive, which
yeah,
would make teams better, the country's
yeah.
team better, the international scene better, and players would not have to leave the Super League together, except for financial reasons, which again is the next step,
Or
isn't it?
lifestyle reasons.
Yeah.
Like
Now,
Morgan
lifestyle
Knowles has
reasons,
stated that he wanted to go to experience
that
that lifestyle.
so that's fine, absolutely fine. That's a free choice in there. But let's get in a position where we don't have to have this because the carrot is dangled with money, and we should have
Hmm.
the same opportunities there in however we do it.
And then also going, like I said, about the feeder league, it also works vice versa. I know you said like you don't want the older players coming over, but there's young NRL players that aren't
Yes.
quite getting a chance, that are
So
19, that are 20, that aren't
yeah,
getting a chance, and they only debut at 24, 25. They could come over to Super League, have 2, 3 years experience, ramp it up. I remember back in 2008, I think it was, or 2007. Saints had the opportunity to sign Daly Cherry Evans for 2 years when he was 18, 19. And they tried to, and Daly Cherry Evans said, no, I want to stay in Australia. And he ended up staying and signing for Manly and ended up, I think, a year later going, doing that. 'Cause I think it was when the Aussie schoolboys were touring
yeah,
the UK
I think that's right. Yeah,
and France back in
that's right.
2007
Yeah, that's
2008
right.
period, and there was a
Yeah,
load of them youngsters that could nearly signed with Super League clubs, and they all ended up staying. But if you've got the
it's
NRL
right.
investing, they'll encourage them players and go,
Yeah,
listen, you're not going to get a game for 2 or 3 years. Go over to England. They'll set you up with a house with other young players because you've
yeah,
got, like you said, you've got clubs there that are all in a cluster. You can go to them. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to buy an apartment in Huddersfield, right? Buy an apartment in the city centre of Huddersfield. It's a university town, city. We'll have you all in there, like 4 players. One of you plays for Wakefield, one of you plays for Cass, one of you plays for Huddersfield, whatever. And you guys can go over and you can learn and experience that while having effectively a jolly for a
mm,
couple of years while gaining that vital experience from the older
yeah,
NRL players that have been over in Super League, from the experienced Super League players. And then they're playing against men rather than playing against. You know the difference. When you're playing against a man at 18, when you go up to the first grade sides in amateur rugby league compared to the under 18s, it's a huge difference. If you go to open age and you're playing against men, that's when you'll know if that player can make it or break it.
yeah. Of
And I
course.
think
Yeah,
it'll work both ways rather than just. I think it's easier to look on the negative side of going, oh, it's a feeder comp, but arguably we already are.
it's got to be done in the right way that improves the standard of the player and the league over here, and that should be our first thought about it. That should be our first insight to it. Everything
Yeah,
should
and
be about that.
yeah, and it shouldn't just be about keeping power and how much money they're investing.
Yeah,
It should be about what else they can bring, including the marketability, including the negotiations, including the restructuring of the league in order to have London come up, which the big news was the IMG criteria have changed this year,
I was just going to mention that to you.
which benefits London massively.
How can you get more IMG points for winning the championship than you can for winning the Challenge Cup? Double.
I don't know.
Double the points that you get.
I don't know.
And then, have you seen the stuff that they've changed around the catchment?
Yeah.
So Huddersfield will lose theirs because they used to get Kirklees and the population of Kirklees. Now I think it's the population of Huddersfield,
Which
or
is
whatever it
strange
is.
because it should have been Kirklees anyway,
Yeah.
because it's Kirklees Council.
And London now, of course, that's right. And London now get massive points from being in London.
Greater London, which is, 9.5 million people?
I'd rather than be honest about it and say, how can we get London into Super
Yeah.
League? Wouldn't you?
How can we bid off Huddersfield and get London in?
I'd rather
That's basically
say,
what it is.
Right, we need to get London in, lads. How do we do that and have them as
So
the
does
fifth
that mean
team?
Does that mean then, like, Wigan have Greater Manchester and sharing it with Salford? They get City of Salford, for example. Do Wigan get Greater Manchester? Do Warrington get Cheshire? How does that work with Widnes? And then do Saints get Merseyside? So do Saints get all of that region?
I think it only works with London.
It is that, though, isn't it? How can we get London in Super League?
And I'd rather them say that. I'd rather them say that.
Just be honest.
Saying, we'd really it's important for us we get a London team in, just as they did in '96 with the start of Super League when they were like, right, we need a colder team. That means that Huddersfield and Halifax and whoever else are going to merge. Hull and OKR, yes, you're going to merge. I'd rather them. This is the pretty much. They come out and said it. These are the things that we want to do, and there was enormous backlash at the time.
I think it proves that the NRL talks are going pretty well, because Andrew Abdos basically said, "Yeah, we need London in Super League," and then suddenly 2 weeks later, we're getting all this IMG stuff changing, and it's quite clear that the NRL want to work with IMG as well, because they've worked with them previously, I believe, or they've got a lot of Australian people working for IMG anyway, so they'll have connections to the likes of Abdo, to the likes of BBL.
It looks to me as though there's certain non-negotiables with this deal, and I think having London in is one of them.
Yeah, it's got to be on it. Yeah, I think that's right. And also, we talked about the player pool a lot, and the likes of the Championship, in the UK has been a talent pool that has been utilised a lot. None more so than the likes of Chris Hill back in the day, and now Alex Walmsley, who I think he's 35, isn't he?
Yeah.
Or he's going to be 36 by the time this contract's up, but he's just signed another 12 months. And I've seen people online going, "Oh, he's past his peak. He's not good enough. Injuries are catching up with him." As a Saints fan, we know Alex Walmsley will miss 10 games a year through injury, more than likely. He has done for, as far as I can remember throughout his Saints career. We know, he'll knock on at the play the ball every now and again. But what he's doing still at this age, he's still bringing his leadership. He's still bringing that that oomph that we need, whether it's off the bench or starting. He still makes huge meters. He still gets a good offload out. At 35, he's still playing outstanding rugby league.
He caught Ollie Pratt last week.
And his trundling run.
Yeah.
That he just... It's like a tank, isn't he? He's like, he just somehow gets there.
I think there's a bit of jealousy from fans of other clubs,
hugely,
I think, towards him. I mean, he was a bit of a scapegoat in the Ashes series last year.
I didn't think he played too bad in that series.
No, I think as a general thing, our pack was outclassed in the Ashes series. But the point I was making there was that at 35, he's still a mainstay of that England pack.
Yeah,
You know, and
and he'll bring the experience.
I think the biggest thing is that he's still playing to such a high level. You know, and I think he's probably earned the right, a little bit James Roby-esque, to go out on
Yeah,
his own terms. You know, and I think if Saints didn't offer him a 1-year contract, I think there'd be a queue of Super League clubs willing to offer him 2 years.
easily. You've seen it when he signed his 2-year extension that OKR had offered him quite big money, and he decided to stay.
Yeah.
And that was only 2 years ago. And he was what, 32, 33 at the time. And he's a he's a player that came from the Championship. I know it was 15 years ago. I know the sport landscape changed drastically. You know, in terms of rugby league, we no longer have a League One, for example. He came from Batley Bulldogs. You know, he's a player that has done the rounds. There's players currently in Super League, the likes of Joe Batchelor. His story a few years ago went huge, that he went from League One York to an England appearance in a matter of 5 years and a grand final winner. You know, you've got these players that have done it. Matty Ashton came from Swinton,
Yeah.
you know, at Warrington, and had a few years of shaky starts and is now England's mainstay winger as long as he's fit. You've got these players that we can utilise. There's a lot of players in that Championship that could step up to Super League that maybe haven't been given a chance. Is that a pool we need to start looking at again?
Absolutely. Completely. I can't agree more with that. I've often said about players that have come in to Saints, for example, and said there must be players in the Championship that could do just as good a job as X for a tenth of the price. In fact, I'll give you 3 names off the top of my head: Josh Perry, Luke Douglas,
Yeah,
Anthony LaFranchi.
yeah.
Right? There's 3 names just off the top of my head, right? That you could say, are you telling me there aren't 3 props in the Championship that would do just as good a job, or bad a job, whichever way you look at
Eddie
it?
Batty would have done a better job than some of them
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
back in the day.
I totally agree. You know, and you can go through. You could go through 50% of Super League players that
Elliot
haven't come through an
Minchella.
academy
Elliot
and said,
Minchella went to Sheffield, wasn't it?
"Who was
After
that? Sorry."
Leeds. Elliot Minchella was at
Yeah,
Sheffield for a
you know,
period.
didn't Zach Cardaker come from Featherstone?
Yeah, he had a loan period. I think that was during his little
His troubled days.
troubled time, the troubles.
The lost years. Zach Cardaker could be a book. That Zach Cardaker, the lost years. But
Oh, too
well,
fast, too furious.
do you know what I mean? Though there's so many talents that have come through smaller teams and just waiting for a chance. You know, didn't what's it play for Widnes that's in he's playing really well at the minute. Ash Bot.
Yeah, I thought, wasn't he Wakefield?
Was he Wakefield? I thought he'd come through Widnes.
Oh, he might have come through Widnes, but I've swore he was at
I was thinking,
Wakefield.
yeah, I thought he'd come through. I thought he'd played for Widnes, and then he'd been in the Championship.
He
I'm
might have
pretty
done.
sure, yeah. But
He
I'm
was at,
just saying, there's dozens and dozens of players that are the same ilk, if you like, that need a chance. And this is the problem. This is the problem, going back to the other point of having 10 overseas players, because it's a lazy way of recruitment. Oh, look at all these overseas players we've
and
signed. We've got all
also,
this.
you're going to be paying a Championship player a lot less than you're paying these fringe NRL
Yeah,
players. Because Chris
exactly.
Radlinski said in an interview, and on Sky, I think it was earlier today, or it was on the bench or whatever, saying that, you know, a fringe Super League player can go over to the NRL. He might only be on like 50k a year in Super League, and they can offer him over 100k just to be in the top 30.
Yeah.
So, like, you've got young players that'll have that temptation, but also when you're getting a player over from the NRL, like it was rumoured that Wakefield had offered that try Fuller like
Mm.
500k for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's not a 500k player,
Yeah.
250, 300,000 pounds a year player in Super
I
League. He's not.
no, you're quite right. I wonder about what's happened. Again, you look at clubs losing money and things like that. So I wonder what's happened as an overall picture to Super League club scouting systems.
Yeah. Well, I know one person that's working with a Super League club that's helping them scout New South Wales Cup and Queensland Cup
Hmm.
players. Yeah, there's a certain club that they're working with. So there's with this 10 quota players, you're already seeing Super League clubs going, hey, what is there, by the way, in the New South Wales Cup and Queensland
Hmm.
Cup? What can you guys help us
But
with?
but why aren't we saying, hey, what's going on in Workington?
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? Where's that coming from? Because I don't see that the same. I don't see Super League players signing players like they used to from the Championship, and a lot of it I think is because of the extended quota stuff. With the overseas players we're signing, like you've just said, they're not even NRL players.
no, it's
The
like,
Queensland Cup, New South Wales Cup, the New South Wales Junior, this, that, and the other. They're not established players.
and the likes of the Tri Fuller one, he's 28. He made his
Yeah,
debut at 25, 26. It's not like he's been a staple. He's a good player, don't get me wrong. He would light up Super League,
yeah,
but I don't think he's worth the amount of money that was quoted. And at the age he is, it's not like you're getting, Tristan Taylor, for example, was 26, 25, I think, when he signed for Saints. And, he's now 27, but he's coming into the prime age of a fullback and a half that will do that. At 28, you're talking, he'll be 29 by the time he joins. That
yeah,
money, does that justify the amount? Like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, for example, on the money he has been offered, rumoured marquee player, obviously, he's still got the ability. Maybe not that he had 10 years ago, because he was, best player in the NRL, but he's still got ounces of ability that'll work over here.
yeah. Of course, yeah. You mentioned Sailor there? Would you give him a new deal?
Yeah,
Think it's likely?
I'm his biggest fan.
Think it's likely?
Yeah, I think it's very likely. I think he loves it over in England at the minute
Yeah.
with Manchester. He's a very
And,
humble person,
and
so I think
Lee
he'd like the
Lee
quiet life.
and Lee Breers was very, very. He was gushing in his praise of him this week as well.
He said he's his number one fan. I still say, as long as I'm alive, he won't be. But
Yeah.
even even
I
even
think
Callum's
you're getting him
changed.
mixed up. You're getting him mixed up with Wonga Blake.
No, I'm getting mixed up with Don Payru. That's it.
That's it, Dom. Yeah.
No, but he's even changed Callum's opinion on him.
He has actually. Yeah, he's coming. Well, Callum's now of the opinion that like he doesn't want Welderby to come back in at fullback because he doesn't think that he's going to offer anything any more than Sailor is doing.
And that's huge praise for Tristan, I think. We all know
I
Jack's
think so.
quality at
Yeah.
fullback.
Yeah.
So then the Saints are in a predicament. Where do they go? Do they put Jack to 6? Do they play him at loose forward?
Yeah.
What do they do? It's a
I,
conundrum that
I,
Paul Rowley's
yeah.
got.
I think Wellesby should be the one that's moved, not Sailor. Personally,
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
there's two reasons for that. I think Sailor's form
Earned
um,
the shirt.
has earned the shirt, and I also think that Wellesby's more adaptable to be able to move because I think Sailor is a one or or nothing, whereas I think
Yeah,
Wellesby can play two or three positions.
yeah. And, playing with two fullbacks isn't unheard of. You know, at the end of the day, you look at Melbourne Storm, they had Papanak, for example, they've got now Farlongo, Munster, fullback by trade. Hughes, fullback by trade. You know, they've got that. You look at the Gold Coast Titans, poor example, because they've got no cohesion whatsoever. But they've got Jaden Campbell, fullback by trade, AJ Brimson, fullback, and then they've got Keeney, fullback. So playing with fullbacks isn't unheard of. It's just who can transition best, and I think Jack is more likely to transition to
Yeah,
6
6
easier. He
off.
played,
Yeah,
you know,
even
and
even
and and
30, even 13, like you said. Plus, I don't think since he's come back last year, he hasn't certainly looked as quick. So we'll see how he
no,
comes back this time. Yeah, but yeah.
yeah. But I think that is a good podcast right there, Andy. I think we've covered all the topics we want to. You can go and get some food. We have recorded this
Thank
straight
you, mate.
after the Castleford game. Castleford, yet again, disappointing, but is what it is. Hull KR racking up the points this year.
And Castleford win one and then keep losing by 50 points, don't they?
Win one,
They
lose
keep letting
three.
50 in. Come on. Have some pride in your defence, lads. You know, it's basic stuff sometimes, isn't it? They
They'll
should
probably
not be
go and beat
conceding.
Saints.
You know, but they shouldn't be conceding 50 points a game, should they? You know? Anyway, that's
We
for another
predicted
day.
it. Yeah, it is. Anyway, this has been the Super League Pom-Cast. I've been Johnny. He's been Andy. And peace and love.
Bye.